But I'm talking today in this opening monologue about a bigger picture thing that's driving this kind of rapidly nauseating change of culture in America, in which everybody is supposed to pick a tribal identity, and it's always a victim group, right? America's flag used to be the civic religion that bound us together. We had our differences, we had our problems, but we came together united by the flag. And then the wars happened over and over. Different wars started to happen that we didn't quite believe were needed or just. It didn't unite us together. Maybe there was, sold to us with some stretched truths, Gulf of Tonkin, so forth and so on. Maybe some things, Agent Orange, abuse of soldiers, abuse of different folks involved with the war when they come back, their families being harmed by the moral sufferings that the soldiers endure, not adequate health care, not respect for the soldiers that come back, abuse of the public's trust, and hey, just one more year, just one more handout for giant corporations for us to be over in a far-off land. I'm talking about Vietnam, but I'm talking about many, many, many other wars. You have those different wars come over and over and over again, and people start to say, wait a second. This isn't like World War II. This feels like our trust in this flag symbol are being misused and abused, and this symbol is not standing for what it used to stand for. It's standing for the spread of Wilsonian globalism and war profiteering and racketeering and all this terrible stuff. And so that mythic veil, that mythic, hey, this is the religion that we can all get goosebumps around, people started to say, I don't know if I agree with that. And all of a sudden they start looking for a new tribal group to find, and then they start looking at different victims of the West, America's past, and they start saying, well, let's create an identity group that's exclusionary and says this group is the sacred victim group. So you had the feminist movement doing that. They looked at different ways in which women have been mistreated, and they said, hey, let's create a victim cult, a religion of political power that would be bound together by expressing concern for the victimization of women, and that will be a bludgeon that we will use for political power to coerce whatever we in our political group want. And so that's where we go with that. And then you get different racial identity groups that come along and say, hey, you know what? Our group has been disadvantaged. Our group has been systematically hurt and shut out. And so we're going to take that victim concern, that pain that people feel because we're in a Christian society that's haunted by victimization and scapegoats. And so therefore it creates currency and power. And then that is cashed in for political coercive power and a seat at the table to use coercion. And on and on and on, different groups. And each of those groups become sacred in the minds of the people in it, and they continually have to have more and more schisms, breakaway groups out from that group, because they'll say, well, this isn't strong enough, we have to be the radicals, and this isn't strong enough, we need to have to break away from that group. It's kind of like how Protestant churches have, how many, 40,000 denominations, always a schism for this or that. We have to schism for this reason, we have to schism for that reason, we have to break away for that reason, this reason, that reason. And then it happens in the institutional churches as well. But this mindset that always having to break away and create a new group, and that new group kind of binds together by saying, aren't we glad that we're not those guys we broke away from? That's where we're at today. That's where we have identity politics. That's why have to have a kind of sacred core, which is this story about victims, which is interesting because René Girard, the anthropologist that we reference on this show from time to time, has said that humanity does not invent its gods, it deifies its victims. In the word religion, the root means to bind together. So here we have what? Deified victims that bind people together in a sense of shared transcendence. But within that group, there's constant infighting and rivalry and schism, and they have to always be on the hunt for a common scapegoat that binds the broader coalition of people who buy into the story of that split off group. They have to always be on the hunt for scapegoats to kind of reinvigorate the cause for its members. And I see that as what we're dealing with today. And it will not stop until we understand that it doesn't go anywhere, that it won't create the sense of belonging and community and peace and restoration between pain and suffering that people experience. It will not bring forgiveness. It will not bring peace and shalom the way it promises. And we cannot make that otherwise. We can't change it. It's something written into reality itself. You will not have lasting peace by joining together in purging a common foe. As promising as it feels in the moment, as often as you will find gurus and charlatans and Pied Pipers who will tell you just this once, go, believing that you will find transcendent relief and satisfaction in joining together and expelling this common enemy group. Every time it's tried, it doesn't create catharsis. It doesn't create resolution. It doesn't bring you deep and lasting peace. Because Jesus destroyed that psychological possibility by disrupting that way of making peace. That's why when Jesus said he came to bring peace, but not as the world creates peace. Why? What does that mean? If you don't understand what I'm talking about anthropologically, it doesn't really make any sense. What does it mean? What is the world? I mean, if we just think of Jesus as just another deity to pick from in terms of some kind of big other in the sky that we pick and we say, okay, that team, it's that team, not Hercules, not Buddha, not that or whatever. If that's the way we think of Jesus, then what does it mean when he says, I've come to bring peace, but not the way the world does peace? What is that? We have to understand that the world used to make peace common enemy group to expel, to create internal peace and unity between people who are going to have rivalry and conflict. And the more we come to terms with that as the foundation of our culture, we'll be able to stop making the same mistakes. Because when Jesus said it's finished on the cross, he wasn't joking. He was finishing that scapegoat approach to society. He was finishing it so that we wouldn't be able to do it anymore. So that we would learn to get along with each other together without expelling a common enemy to get along. We'd have to learn to like each other without a common enemy. What a novel concept. Imagine if conservatives could get along without having a common enemy to constantly be in fear of and in rivalry to in order to have happiness and joy. Imagine if the left, God bless them, could have joy without having to hate Donald Trump and everything that they're told his supporters represent. Imagine if people in Hollywood could have joy without having to punch down on lower income Trump supporters by mocking the way they look, the way they speak, their hygiene, their teeth, whatever. Imagine if they could have true joy in relationship with one another without having to hurt somebody else socially or physically. That's the world Jesus had in mind, and we can all be a part of it right now. It's not pie in the sky. The only thing pie in the sky is that we can continue to do what we're doing and have any sense of sanity.